go. Buttons are clicking. Slowly work our way. Get rid of a few bits and pieces. Let's turn that off and just wait for things to catch up. Just because it slightly overloads everything, and then we will hit the button. Hey, there we go. Tweets have obviously gone out. Posts have gone out. Just wait for everybody to kind of get in. Had a haircut since last week, of course. The problem is that the light is shining right there, literally sort of right here, and it's like, there is hair there, look, I swear. Look, there is actually hair there. It just makes it look like it's shining off my head, which isn't a great start. But let's just make sure that we've pinged out all the bits and pieces like I think we have. It's hit Facebook by the look of it. Is this no? Is that because you're a Maple? Is this the Maple Leaf fan in you, Tom? Just setting yourself up for, setting yourself up for it now. Is that I am ready to be hurt again. I don't know much about it either. Probably not. I mean, it's a fair shout. Like, if you don't know anything about the NHL, there's 32 teams in the NHL. So yes, statistically, it's hard. It's not going to be a very, very high chance. However, just going to. Quickly do some bits there. Make sure things are coming in. People are starting to wander in. Just also seeing the time as well. So I've been sat there making sure things have gone out into different places, just trying some stuff, because it is, as we know, a fair bit to talk about this evening, which means, given the time, we should probably crack on and do that. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful and wacky world that is the National Ice Hockey League here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But of course, we are here for the next 60 to 90 minutes to take you through anything and everything from the National Division, as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another fun Wednesday evening here at BOTW Towers. Hope everybody is doing well. As you can see, I survived a haircut and survived being underneath the bleachers in Oxford. And of course, tons and tons to chat about this evening. Some fun results from across the different leagues. A little bit of news actually as well. One bit of signing news. Well, I say signing news, releasing news that's come out today in the NIHL. And yes, we've got all the action from last week, and we are going to have a look at some of the stuff from IHUK. But first, we need to crack on and give you that little bit of housekeeping to get you folks up to speed, old and new. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Thank you as ever for joining me on my Banners on the Road series, my weaving tour across British hockey this year in 24-25. And if you didn't see it, it came out late last night because I finished it and I was so excited to get it out. I just hit post without really thinking about what I was doing. But last Sunday night, this Sunday just gone, I was at the Ox Pens in Oxford for the City Stars and Swindon Wildcats 2. I had far too much fun, more fun than you should ever really get at a game between two sides that are probably going to be knocking around the bottom of South 1. But what a game for a bunch of really, really fun reasons. I will talk about it when we get through our NHL 1 chat a bit later, of course. But if you haven't, do go read the write-up from Sunday. Just an in-depth look at just a fun game with a bunch of different stories kind of going on. And like I say, it ends up with me in a dark tunnel with lots of metal protruding everywhere. But Of course, you've got the Battles on the Road series, which takes you on my journeys. Ever since the Bison kind of went off into the distance, it's been taking you, across different countries, across different borders, to different rinks around Britain, and it's carried on into this season. You've also got our Hockey Story series, long-form pieces of content from around the world of ice hockey, from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war, and beyond. And so here's the thing. The new piece is coming out in a couple of weeks, just because I've got an interview that was going to be Tuesday, is now going to be Thursday, because there is a weekend coming up at the end of October where I am not going to a game. Family commitments, I'm going to go see my dad. I talk about my dad at the end of every show. As some of you may or may not know, my dad has Parkinson's and he's got Parkinson's dementia. So for half term, kicking in for school, we're taking the boy down to see his granddad. But what we're going to get that weekend, instead of getting a game right up, because I won't be at a game, what you're going to get is you are going to get a new Hockey Stories piece that weekend. And all I will say is, for folk who remember the great line from Doctor Who, it is the end, but the moment has been prepared for. Purely about the content of the piece, not about anywhere we're going. But like I say, tons of stuff to read and catch up on over on the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And of course, we are here every Wednesday night throughout the British Ice Hockey season. The What's Current stream, the best live show that covers all things across the NIHL. And of course, being YouTube, head down to the description box. Links to Twitter, links to Facebook, and of course to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. All of that good stuff is there. And of course, all the other YouTube bits. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like the video, share the video. But the best bit about being a live show is we get the chat, which means that you can join in with the show and throw bits and pieces in. Comments, questions, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to throw in as we take our weekly look at the National Ice Hockey League. All we ask you to do is follow the golden rule here at BOTW, and that is DBAD, don't be a dick, be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we are going to have a jolly good time. Righty-ho, so the big news, the bit of NHL news that we will head off with right at the top of the show is, of course, news out of Gosport and the Solent Devils, where a mutual agreement sees Joe Llewellyn, big hulking D-man, leaving the Solent Devils. Bit of an interesting start to the season for the Devils, of course. A few big defeats, a few pretty decent wins, of course. Banners on the road right up from a couple of weeks ago, where they were 3-0 up inside 20 minutes against Invicta, and then blew the game. So it's been a bit of a weird start to the Devils. Of course, a lot of player turnover in the summer. Some things have worked, some things haven't. Kane Russell has come roaring into the season, so they're getting goals. They bought Liam Coleman back from Swindon 2. A bunch of stuff kind of going on. But certainly an interesting decision to see an experienced D-man leave. One of the things, though, in Solent that I think maybe has shown up when we've been going through the stats and bits and pieces of that, young defenseman Charlie Wedge has really made a promising start to the season, and maybe it's just a case of Alex Murray looking to change things up, maybe looking at how they can make things, what can they do? Do they have somebody else potentially coming in? All questions, of course, to be asked, and we're going to find out just what some of the answers to those questions might be, because this Saturday, back to Gosport do I go, because it is the Solent Devils and the Slough Jets. Now, the Jets, of course, have been looking fantastic to start the year. They've been smashing everybody left, right and centre, and most of their top end have been going off to Romford and doing the business there, especially Sebastian Moore. He has been an absolute firecracker as a bit of scoring depth for Adam Laysham's side, and the Raiders themselves have had a pretty decent start as well. Of course, helped a little bit by the fact that they've been able to borrow some of these young lads from Slough to fill out some of the lower scoring lines. But that Sebastian Moore with that overtime winner against Hull, Moore from Christian Moore from Ethan James, hell of a way to get a 3-on-3 overtime goal. But what will that all feed into this coming Saturday? That remains to be seen. But yes, either way, make sure to chuck bits and pieces into the chat as we go. Thanks to everybody, of course. Keep answering the warm-up question as we go. Is this the Leafs' year as the NHL season starts tonight? The Amazon Prime series, the NHL series, of course, is up there. I've watched episode 1 just because the wife has decreed it's a series we are watching together, so I can't jump ahead. But have watched the episode 1 with the Leafs and the Bruins from last year. Depression for my Leafs supporting friends. I can see folk are in the chat. Two for flinching there. Chris Beale, of course, who does social media bits and pieces, and now makes highlights for Fullstream. So fantastic to see one of my oldest hockey friends in the chat too. And Sigala, of course, who was there in Oxford. on Sunday evening. Yes, that Oxford Swindon game was fun, worth the 1 hour 45-minute-ish bus journey I took there and back again. Yeah, the traffic in Oxford was murder, absolute murder. Took me just over an hour to do the first 54 miles, and in about 20 minutes to do the last mile of the journey. Just utterly soul crushing. That one. I imagine Joe will go Swindon or Oxford. Kind of is a possibility, but I think one of the other two. I wouldn't actually be surprised if I think actually they're C. I think you are probably on nail on the head there. I've no knowledge of where he's going, but actually Swindon could probably do with an extra D man, purely because I think they're just kind of lacking a bit of veteran nous, and I think Llewellyn would really help them with that. And Oxford just need people at the moment, so there's obviously options there. And of course, if you went to either of those sites, you get a decent amount of ice time. Of course, Swindon, for those National Division fans, the Swindon top D pairing for the Wildcats too is Ben Nethersell and Ollie Stone. Watch NHL face-off reminder of the worst trade in Cats history. Yay! God bless you, Philip Forsberg. I hate you, Martin Erat. Either way, let's crack on, just because obviously within the NIHL, one of the things that we talk about here being in the NIHL, we talk about player development. I was on A View from the Bridge a couple of weeks ago talking about player development, and we talk about it a lot, but out of nowhere, Ice Hockey UK appeared to have popped up out of nowhere, and it has been news story after news story from the folk running the sport. Because the first thing came out 2 days ago, which is the launch of the new Ice Hockey UK strategy, which as a document is a thing. One of the things, I mean, they've talked about their values. Our values, the GB way, which is the first sort of big thing they put out there, because that was their sort of the picture with all the social media posts. Honesty and integrity in all that we do, building a prosperous and sustainable future for the game we all love, stronger together on and off the ice, safe, equal, inclusive and progressive environments. Those are these four new values, stated values from Ice Hockey UK about their strategy for the next 6 years. Now, if you haven't looked at the strategy documents on the Ice Hockey UK website, go and find it. If someone's got the link to hand, if you stick it in the chat just while I'm chatting, that'd be really appreciated. But here's the thing. Strategy documents are not made to give you the minutiae of the detail. I think sometimes people forget about this, and it's really, and where there's so much that we can see and we want to tinker and tweak about British hockey, it's worth remembering that a strategy document like this is not going to give you the ins and outs of how they are going to achieve these big things that they talk about. My problem with the strategy document is that I don't think there is enough detail at all. There should not be, we are going to achieve it by doing this, and this. It's not meant to be a 20, 30 point plan. It's given us a big long list of their aspirations. That's cool. That's okay. And the strategy document talking about these are the things we want to achieve. And there is some good stuff in there. I think about making GB hosted events carbon neutral. Brilliant. Really good idea. We need to be, ice hockey is not a particularly environmentally friendly sport. So trying to do their best to make events carbon neutral is really, really good in this modern day and age. Having a more coherent player pathway and better workings with England ice hockey and Scotland ice hockey, I think is a really, really good thing. But I would like a tiny bit of detail about how we're going to get from point A to point Z. And there's none of it at all. Not even we are going to achieve this by going from here to here to here. And there's not really enough about how they're going to achieve anything. And I think that's kind of where, from my perspective, I would like a little bit more. And I've been involved, the organisation I work for in my 9 to 5 has a strategy. They're actually writing a new one now. And other people, you at work, you might have written strategy documents as well. And yeah, having some of the pie in the sky stuff is great, and I actually think that's kind of what that's there for. But not necessarily giving us the 10-step plan, but maybe giving us how they're going to get from A to B would be somewhat appreciative. A little bit of detail, I think, really would have been useful here. Just because I think, and maybe this is me being the cynic, so I'm nearly at the point where I've been watching ice hockey for 20 years, right? And I have seen false dawns dawns that started and didn't go, and were promised much and delivered little. And I think maybe they could have lent into the fact that maybe as a fan base, British hockey fans, especially ones that have been around the game a long time, are a little bit cynical, and giving people the idea of how some of this stuff may be achieved, if only for people to engage and say, I'm not sure this is feasible, how are you going to do that? Because it allows people to ask those necessary questions of, right, you said you're going to do this by doing this, how does that work? This may be a problem because of X, Y, and Z. And that's not to tear everything down. Ice Hockey UK deserve a lot of credit for poking their head above the parapet. They seem to spend the better part of this week poking their head above the parapet, talking about how they're going to make the sport in Britain better. There is some good stuff in there. I mean, we look at some of the other bits and pieces this week as well, particularly the news that came out today about their working with the Elite League. Ice Hockey UK is pleased to announce it's currently holding discussions with the Elite Ice Hockey League with regards to a long-term partnership to further develop GB talent. I nearly fell off my chair, mostly because if anybody's watched my bits and pieces on A View from the Bridge, I talked about the fact that this was everybody's responsibility, and I also talked about the fact the Elite League kind of needed to decide what its role was in any of it. And if the Elite League is having discussions with IHUK about how it's going to help the GB national programme and develop British players, then that says to me that the Elite League is at least on a journey to, talking about the fact they might be doing it feels like a huge step from where they were before, which was kind of shrugging their shoulders and not really engaging much. That's massive. Like, IHUK seems to be pulling rabbits out of hats left, right and centre, which my brain immediately went to, have they got some funding they want to secure somewhere? In which case, great, that'd be really helpful for the national teams, both men's and women's. But also, like I said, the Elite League, has somebody come around to, having shouted about it for so long, I was a bit worried that they were coming around to my way of thinking, which after so long was a bit bizarre. Now, of course, anything with the Elite League is not going to really come to fruition until the 25-26 season. There's not going to be any magic pill, no magic bullet. We're not going to see huge changes right now, albeit, of course, those changes of two-way rules for the Elite Leagues, for the Elite League clubs, and particularly surrounding the Challenge Cup, where where young players are allowed to come up on two ways, get 20 games rather than 6, and also and not count against a roster spot in the Elite League rules. Where was all this? Like, yes, admittedly, and people will have seen it. A few people were saying, "Well, they've only changed the rules because Sheffield bought a National League team." Yeah, but that is going to kind of work out for people quite well. So Ice Hockey UK, so like I said, this new strategy document, which like I said, for me, should have had and needed more detail, but also had some good stuff in it too. That's okay. Discussions with the Elite League, very, very good, very, very much needed. The thing that is slightly causing me to scratch my head, and of course, they also put out their release about their closer bits of working together with Scottish Ice Hockey, which is been very much sort of in a different vein to what's happened with England as well. So there's sort of less going on there. But the big news that kind of made me scratch my head was yesterday, where Ice Hockey UK and England Ice Hockey announced a new agreement which will see sharing of executive expertise and resources. So Ice Hockey UK CEO Henry Stalens is now going to be the CEO of both Ice Hockey UK and England Ice Hockey. And Grant King, who's been on, not that Grant King who's taken the photographs in Basingstoke, but Grant King, who has been who's been on the Ice Hockey UK board and used to play for Guildford and for Slough way back in the day, is now going to be Chief Operating and Development Officer for both organisations. Now, the reason why I'm scratching my head slightly about all of this is because it's solving a problem, but also kind of creating a problem, or at least not necessarily a problem, but something I'm confused by, right? For any of us who were hanging around British hockey during the pandemic, we remember the failed unification vote, where the English Ice Hockey Association, as it was at the time, came into its AGM talking about the fact that it wanted to integrate itself and it wanted to merge with Ice Hockey UK to move towards creating one governing body. And that needed 75% of the membership to vote for it. There was a movement from a group, the EIHC, as they were at the time, which included someone who was now very, very senior on the IHUK board, that was not in favour of unification at that time. The resolution got just over 60, I think it was like 66 or 67%, so it got 2/3, but it needed a 75% to pass, and unification was off the table. It made the positions of a bunch of people on the board of England Ice Hockey at the time completely untenable, and the organisations kind of sort of drifted around during the pandemic, and now we see ourselves at a point about 3 years later where everything's starting to come back together. And the thing that's confusing for me is, where are the people who 3 years ago were saying that unification was not the right thing? Where are they now? Where are they sitting with all of this? Because the England Ice Hockey is still a membership association, right? The members have the say. We are seeing closer movement together between Ice Hockey UK and England Ice Hockey. Where are they now that they weren't in a place to be happy with this 3 years ago? Now, don't get me wrong, I think unification is the right thing. I think we need one governing body for the sport in Britain. The question I'm asking is that it wasn't okay a few years ago, and one of the people who wasn't in favour of unification 3 years ago is now the head of the organisation that's kind of sideways walking into unification. I'm really confused by that. Or at least maybe I'm missing the trick here. Maybe I'm the one who doesn't understand it, because maybe so much has happened in the background that we're at a point now where unification is an easier thing. But I'm interested to hear from those people who voted against unification 3 years ago to say, where are they now? You know, what has changed? What has substantively moved on so much? And yes, there's been large turnover of the board of both Ice Hockey UK and England Ice Hockey, but there is some parts of me scratching my head, not necessarily about the end goal, but I've always been a very big believer in the end doesn't justify the means, and I can't see where the means have drastically changed. At least not to the point where things are so different from a few years ago to what they are now. And maybe this is just a case now of people putting their heads together and going, actually, we should be doing things better and getting on with it. But it feels like, I say, having said that we were going to be separate organisations, they're now all working together again. And the thing that this kind of leads on to is, where does all this go? Because obviously we've seen that the Ice Hockey UK is now speaking to the Elite League about what it does, which is cool. What does this also do for the supposed reports that the national division is still wanting to step away? Because ultimately, if we're going to end up with one singular governing body by, I don't know, say this time next year, as an example, did the national division bother? Did they just sit it out and wait? What do they do? There's questions that kind of come up on this that I'm quite confused by. Interested to hear people's thoughts, so stick your bits and pieces in the chat, because I'm interested to hear what people think. Ultimately, like I say, unification is the right way forward. I'm interested in their means of achieving it. And people will say, oh, Anthony, it doesn't matter sometimes how you get there, as long as you get there. And in the main, I generally don't agree with that. I think you have to do things the right way too. And are we doing things the right way when, or at least if we are doing things the right way, can you show us the way you're doing it? It's like your maths lessons back at school. Show you working. Show you working out, please. How have we got from there to there? And let's kind of walk people on that journey. Ice Hockey UK in its strategy document talks about the fact it wants to engage the fans, and it wants to, make sure it's got its stakeholders engaged. Can you engage them? Can you let them know where we're walking, please? Or where we've walked as well? That might be quite helpful too. Ultimately, we all want what's good for the sport. Ice Hockey UK, England Ice Hockey, us knocking things around on a Wednesday night. We want things to be going well for this sport in this country, because it's our favourite thing to do. For me, I have to ask the questions because I want to be happy that we're not going to hit the new 0 point and immediately go flying off the cliff. I sat through and watched Red Hockey do what that did, which ultimately in some ways led to the collapse of the EPL. I sat through people trying to do bits and pieces during the pandemic. I've sat through I've heard enough stories and read enough about the Super League and the BNL and the early days of the Elite League. I've seen my team nearly go to the wall twice in 2 years and now has a dilapidated rink that it can't play out of. Maybe it's my trauma speaking on that point. But I ultimately want this sport to not just survive, but thrive. And it feels like for a very, very long time, British hockey has found its way to just keep pulling its way from one year to the next. And if Ice Hockey UK wants to talk about the sport being sustainable, wants to talk about it growing, we got to grow in the right way. And I want to make sure that they're doing that. And I think we have to keep asking those questions and keep asking those questions out loud. Don't just keep it in your heads. Like, if you feel that challenge the people in charge. Ask them the questions. Because actually, a lot of people say, I don't trust these people as far as I can throw them. But the other thing as well is actually maybe they're right. Maybe they aren't right. But you still have to ask the question. That's why at the House of Commons you've got a parliament and an opposition whose job is to challenge the government and hold them to account. The people running the sport that we love, we should hold them to account in the best way. I can still see an Elite League 2 forming in 3 to 4 years' time. Jamie, if there's going to be an Elite League 2, then you have to satisfy yourself with the fact that Milton Keynes, given the fact that they are probably bigger than get better attendances than some Elite League clubs, will be in that. Mitchell, late again. Yep. Hey, but you're consistently late, and I can appreciate consistency. As promising as the late statements are, I question how much clubs in the top 2 divisions will generally bite into any plans, and with all due respect to others, they're the key stakeholders. I suppose, Tom, the thing I'd say is it kind of, and obviously, I've known Tom for a long time. Tom is a friend. We've had a chunk of this conversation offline, so hopefully he won't mind me kind of articulating my thoughts out loud on the show. The thing I've been thinking about since Tom and I chatted about this the other day is actually, yes, we can't max out South 1 and North 1, because if that happens from a national team perspective, enjoy Division 2B and Division 3 on that front, because I have a ton of respect for a lot of people in South 1, but they're not international hockey players. The thing I wonder about is, do we see, as part of some of these pathways, a move towards things like age caps, experience caps in things like South 1 and the National? This was the thing I was wondering about, because actually we still need to take those clubs in Division 1 and Division 2 on this journey. Are the Elite League and the National Division key stakeholders? They certainly are in that real development of that next generation of national team players. But actually, getting 16, 17-year-olds playing in Div 1, I think, is a big part of this as well. And particularly that sort of that elite player pathway, getting 14 and 15-year-olds playing senior hockey. Like we see, Scotland have obviously had their pathway, and that young lad at Aberdeen who scored his first senior goal, whose name is completely escaping me as soon as I needed it. But yes, you can argue that the Elite League and the National Division will have more skin in the game, but I think as well we have to pull along the SNL, we have to pull along Division 1, we have to pull along Division 2, because they will be developing a huge amount of that in that short term, particularly if we're going to start allowing 14 and 15-year-olds to play senior hockey. Div 2 should be under 21. I don't actually agree, because I think if you make Div 2 under 21s, you'll end up forcing older players who can still play, but are maybe not at, either don't want to for commitment's sake, or are not in that position to play up. I think making a blanket under 21s division, you need to make it a junior competition. You can't have it senior hockey. I think what I think you probably look for is making South 1. Zach Thompson of Aberdeen, thank you. Apologies to Zach, but congratulations on your goal. I think what you do, Graham, is, like I say, you probably move towards like having something like the ECHL does, and having like a veterans clause, and maxing out sort of non-homegrown players for clubs at a certain number of senior appearances, and maybe doing it that way, like letting in-club developed juniors go and sort of stay where they are, but also there's sort of those guys who do make a bit of extra money kind of moving around, but you start sort of capping that and where you go from there, because I think there has to be a place for people to play as well, and actually we shouldn't be forcing players out of the sport. We need to find alternatives for them, whilst also making sure that we can develop those younger players. Maybe an experienced cap is the way to do that. I recognise Anthony. I think Leeds, Swindon, Steel Dogs, and Hull, possibly Peterborough joining that league as well if it ever came to fruition. I'd be more interested to see if there is an Elite League 2 in the same way there's a DL2. I think maybe just the National just takes that position and goes with it. But maybe they drop to 10. Great point, Willow. Thank you. I try. Either way, we need to talk about some games that happened this past weekend. Keep sticking your comments in the chat, because for those of you unfamiliar, we talk through everything and then we get to the end of the show and we just kind of like fire the cannon and talk about whatever. What we should do though is we should talk about what happened last weekend, and we'll just head to the National to chat about that, of course. So we head back to Saturday evening at the Sapphire, and it is very much Fortress Sapphire. The Raiders set Telford back into the defeat goal, and the Telford ended Saturday night still without a win, a 7-4 win for the Raiders there. Another impressive performance. Finally, a first goal of the season as well for TJ Anderson. He gets on the score sheet in the third period, and another goal for Sebastian Moore, assisted by Joe Tomlin. It would be interesting, of course, to see what happens with Tomlin. He's been referred to DOPS this week. But yeah, Sean Miller, Aidan Wilson, a couple of goals from Jake Sylvester, TJ Anderson, Adelation, and Sebastian Moore on target for the Raiders. And the Tigers still left scratching their head after Saturday evening goals from Harry Ferguson, Scott McKenzie, Adam Harding, and Zach Yokoyama, who's had an okay start in terms of points, but again, that Telford defence just not seeming to quite be where it needs to be at the moment, still conceding far too many goals. And then Saturday in Swindon, and well, I did joke on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it, that Steel Dogs are undefeated since Jamie McElroy, the GM, bought his new trainers. But not a good night at the office for the Swindon Wildcats. They lose by 3-1 as against Sheffield. A very early lead for the Dogs in this one. Finley Ulrich, of course, who played for the Steelers in the Champions Hockey League yesterday, getting on the board after just 40 seconds. 2-0 thanks to Walker Summer before a goal from Sam Godfrey, which is generally always a sign if Sam Godfrey's popping up and scoring goals. He doesn't score them very often, but then a goal late in the second period, a second of the night from Summer, and then the Steel Dogs managed the game out of the reach of the Wildcats, which I think is their first regulation loss at home of the season. And then, well, we talked about the fact there were some upset results. This one is probably the biggest of the upset results of the weekend. I was at the game, obviously, the weekend before, between the Bees and the MK Lightning, and I said before, I felt a bit like the Bees didn't quite get what they deserve for their efforts. But the champions go down in regulation in Slough to the Berkshire Bees. A huge performance from Max Wright. 49 of 50 on the save count for the import netminder. The Leeds a goal ahead. At the end of the first period. A superbly taken goal from Matt Howlett, but then goals in the third from Dom Gabai. Dom Gabai from Marcus Mitchell from Josh Poole, guesting up from the Cardiff Canucks, and then the game winner from El Capitan himself, Stuart Mogg. A very well taken goal and a superb result for the Bees, getting themselves a huge home win at the back there at the Hangar. And then that also asked some questions about what else was happening towards the bottom of the league. And Bristol, Tommy Napier back in net for the Pitbulls, and they come close but fall short in the end. They do get a bit of an offensive push there. That win against Sheffield, not able to kind of be capitalised along the weekend after, with Owen Ryder having to go in net from the Invictus Dynamos. But Tommy Napier back in net, and they do get some offence. 2 goals from Nick Price, including one just about 92 seconds into the game. 2 from Price, 1 from Bobby Reagan, 1 from Sean Morris, and 1 from Tanner Butler. The 5 for the Pitbulls, and the Pitbulls, in fact, coming from behind, being 5-3 down against Peterborough. Jarvis Hunt, Cameron Huff, Joe Gretton, 2 from Cameron Huff, and Joe Gretton and Nathan Salem with the scores for the Phantoms. But in the shootout, just that a little bit extra from the Phantoms, and Nathan Salem takes the extra point back up the road to Peterborough. But the Pitbulls hanging around, still doing the business, not to be sniffed at. And then there was probably one of the ones that people were looking at towards the top end of the table, and well, we wondered what the Seahawks were going to do, and the Seahawks got a bit slapped around actually by MK. Yes, there was a few, quite a few goals. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 goals in the third period there from MK, who just pushed themselves up and away out of sight. Hull, unfortunately, just not finding a way to kind of to really counter that MK offense at home. We know that MK is a tough place to play. We know that they have a great record. A lot of people are saying, obviously harking back to last year, Hull were the only team to beat MK in regulation at home. Could they do it again? And the answer was no. Harry Gulliver, Jordan Cowney, Martin Susters, Malik Martelli, 2 goals from Harry Gulliver, in fact, 2 from Tom's Rutkiss and Ross Venus on that front. And then for goals for Hull from Owen Bruton, Johnny Corneal getting another goal since his joining from the Manchester Storm, and 1 for Lee Bonner. But all points kept very firmly in Milton Keynes. Which then takes us into Sunday and a 4-point weekend for the Dogs. Oh, I've pressed too many buttons there. I've moved myself on too quick. There we go. 4-point weekend for the Dogs. The Bees couldn't capitalise on their fantastic performance at home. They head up to Sheffield and leave with nothing. Marcel Balach and Dominic Gavine getting themselves on the score sheet again. But it's a big offensive night. From the Dogs. A hat-trick for Walker Summer, as well as goals. 2 goals from Jonathan Phillips. Goals from Tate Shudra and Sam Tremblay getting a 4-point weekend. The Dogs are now at 2-0 since Jamie McElroy bought those new trainers. And the Knights, having lost to the Bees, they got themselves back to winning ways. Though a tight game against Solway, still trying to cause, still causing a few problems for people here. They're not going away quietly, even if they're not necessarily eking out all the results that they want to. But it is the Knights with a late comeback as well, 4-3 down at the 54-0-0 mark, and then late goals from Matt Hayward, two in the space of about 3 minutes, put the Knights in front and keep the points at the Castle. 2 goals from Matt Hayward, as well as goals from Matt Barron, Innes Gallagher and Ollie Endicott. For the Sharks, Torren Anderson, which I believe that's his first goal for the Sharks this year, but don't quote me on that. As well as a goal from Joe Lynch, John Dunbar, and who else but Nolan Gardenier. But MK, big win on Saturday night, but they couldn't. But again, another team unable to kind of capitalise on the winning Saturday night. They lose the local derby against Peterborough, a big win and another big night with a hat-trick from Cam Huff and 1 goal from Yanni Lacken, and the imports doing the business for the Phantoms there, as well as being backstopped by Hayden Levine. For MK, Max Stewart, Ross Venus and Martin Susters. MK 3-2 up in the 22nd minute before Peterborough, just like they did against Swindon, just hold on, be patient and turn the game around. So some needed points there for Slava Kulikov's men. Hull, though they lost, Romford were the ones unable to capitalise on their good Saturday evening. A little bit of poking and prodding on both sides between Hull and Romford about tickets and so on and so forth. And Hull, yes, they sort of shuffled a few bits around with some large groups coming in, but tried to keep all the Romford fans together as best. They even said that Romford fans could move around to sit next to each other and it would get sorted out. Wasn't sorted out on the ice, unfortunately. Firmly the points sticking with the Seahawks. 2 goals for Bobby Chamberlain, as well as goals from James Spurr, Emil Svek and Lee Hayward, keeping the points for Matty Davis's side at the World's Most Versatile Arena. Sean Miller and Andrew Schufelt getting the goals for Romford. That is a surprise to absolutely nobody. And then finally, the seal is broken. The Telford Tigers have their first win of the 24-25 National Division season. And sorry, Bristol, but it was always going to be you, wasn't it, unfortunately? As Tommy Watkins' side snap the losing skid and get themselves on the board. Harry Ferguson, Zach Yokoyama, Finn Howe, Scott McKenzie and Adam Harding with the goals for the Tigers. Nick Price and Tanner Butler, 2 goals from a goal from each of their outskating imports for Bristol. Not ideal for Bristol, obviously, as well, but they still remain ahead of the Tigers. It is the Tigers who are still bottom of the table, of course. So then what we do, of course, is have a quick look at the fixtures for this upcoming weekend. So for the 12th and 13th of October. So this Saturday, of course, two sides that had mixed fortunes last weekend, and like I say, the Knights, a bit of a surprising loss, if we're honest, to the Bees, but Leeds will take on Hull as it's a Yorkshire battle at the Castle. The Bees take on the Solway Sharks, in which will be an interesting contest, given where we think both sides might finish in and around that playoff spot. Swindon, having lost in Peterborough, can they recover from a poor result against Sheffield at home to do the business back at the Link Centre? MK take on Telford, so if Telford want to go to 2-0, they're going to have quite a battle on their hands. And on Saturday evening, Sheffield will take on Romford at Ice Sheffield. And then into Sunday, yeah, Bristol are not getting an easy time of things at the moment. Boy, they've had a really tough start to the year, haven't they, Bristol? They get MK on Sunday evening at Cribbs Causeway. Solway head home to take on Sheffield. Romford versus the Bees. That should be a very interesting game. Can the Bees break the walls of Fortress Sapphire? Peterborough versus Telford. And Hull and Leeds will do battle again on Sunday, this time at the world's most versatile arena. So plenty to be sort of excited about there, I think, in terms of some of the results. But yeah, what a wonky weekend! Like, no side's really able to kind of properly capitalise on what was going on. Leeds losing, MK losing, Sheffield, the big winners really of the weekend, picking up 4 points, but Hull get a 2 point weekend. Romford get a 2 point weekend. The fact that Romford are in this title discussion is still pretty crazy, all things considered. What we'll just do, if I just click some buttons, let's just go back to that. Because let's have a quick squiz at the National Division table, which again I've managed to do, and has pulled Telford just out of it there. There we go. That's better for them. So as we can see at the moment, Leeds top of the table with 12 points from 8 games. Hull though with a game in hand, who could go top still with 11 from 7. MK 10 from 7. Same for the Romford Raiders, who are in 4th place at the moment, which I don't think any of us ventured was going to happen. Peterborough on 10 points as well, but they played 8 games, followed by Swindon, Sheffield and Solway rounding out the playoff positions at the moment, albeit that the Bees have got 5 points as well as the Sharks, but the Sharks do have a game in hand. Bristol 3 points from 8. Telford finally winning a game at the 7th attempt. What have we got here? Dogs put in a very solid defensive display on Saturday for sure. Swindon could have got something from the game, but lacked a bit of end product. Malazinski being back on Saturday should hopefully help. And of course, I believe was Aaron Nell was missing at one point. Was Aaron Nell missing on Saturday as well? Telford win their first away game and then get the worst double away weekend in the league in MK and Peterborough. Yeah, not ideal. Summer looks very good, it has to be said. Well, I mean, Jamie McElroy, as you can appreciate, has banged on about all of the Sheffield imports. But Walker Summer does look incredibly good, as does Sam Tremblay. Let's just have a quick squiz and just make sure no extra news is popping up as we go. Nothing immediately that I can see on the news feeds, apart from Stretton trying to take a team photograph and failing, which is impressive, all things considered. Yes, he was. Yes, I thought Aaron was missing on. I was missing on Saturday as well. Obviously, a huge loss. With arguably not just your two best players, because of course Jake Bricknell's made a really good start, as has Mr. Wells. But yeah, your two talismanic forwards really missing from your lineup. But then again, Nell injured, I understand. But of course, Aaron Nell has had historic hip issues. He's had surgery on his hip, so keeping him out of the lineup when necessary is important. But then Malazinski, as to why he's out of the lineup, that was his own stupid fault. So nobody to blame but him, and of course James Ferrara, James Ferrara out of the lineup as well, because DOPS appears to be working, and we're all really concerned. Why is it working so well? It looks and feels very strange. But Peterborough pulling out a 4 point weekend, having beaten Bristol in Bristol and then beating Milton Keynes. So some pretty good stuff there. Could be over 2,000 crowds in the National League this weekend. MK versus Telford and Leeds versus Hull. Ben Norton has had a really impressive start. He has. There was a sort of a social media post about his numbers, but he has had a pretty good start. Been very I think, and I said in my piece, I've said in my piece, and actually, to be fair, I've said this to people in Sheffield. I think the net minding in Sheffield is the question mark. Having 3 goalies, that sort of big sort of rotation, making sure guys get enough minutes. Who will. Who's going to be in on a given night. I still find it weird that Sheffield don't have an announced goalie coach. That still feels really weird to me. If nothing else, because having seen it this afternoon, Lee Valley have got a goalie coach now, but the Sheffield Steelers and the Steel Dogs do not have a named goalie coach. That is weird. That is very, very weird. But Norton has kind of been the under the radar netminder. Under the radar good start from a netminder. I think a lot of people have obviously been focusing their eyes on the imports. Napier, of course, has had a bit of a nightmare start, really. He only just played as much hockey for Bristol as a guy they loaned from Invicta, and the one win that Bristol have was won by Tyler Delabatouche. And then Max Wright, of course, has really sort of poked his head above the parapet this weekend with that win against Leeds. Hayden Levine has looked really, really solid and consistent. So a lot of people, when it comes to the Steel Dogs as well, have kind of been focusing on that very, very high-powered top end. The D hasn't maybe got the love it should have gotten so far, but Ben Norton's got some good numbers there. I see Jamie stuck them in the chat. 2.56 goals against, 92.5% save percentage. So first in the league on that one. Like I said, I think the bigger questions for the Steel Dogs will probably come as we get towards the business end of the season about the stress and the pressure of carrying a team like that will be expected to do well. I think that's where the bigger questions will kind of open up there when it comes to those guys. What we will do is we will get rid of that. What we're going to do is we're going to start with Division 1 and Division 2, but normally we start in North 1, and actually what we're going to do is we're going to go backwards from how we usually do things. Let's have a look at South 2 first, because we'll kind of work our way through it in a slightly different order, if nothing else, just to keep me entertained. Goals, defending was optional on Saturday at Alexandra Palace, as we can see. Of course, if you enjoy the bits and pieces, remember these box scores come from the fantastic Joe Scott at NHLstats.wordpress.com. He does these for Divisions 1 and Division 2, North and South. They look fantastic, and of course for this show, they're a massive, massive help. And if you want to keep tabs on some of those up and coming top quality youngsters, they are really, really good to do so. But yeah, rush goalie, I don't know. Look at all the madness. Look at all the madness in this one. But a hat trick from Connor Smith, sort of the big highlight here, as Haringey, two teams who've lost to Lee Valley this season, of course, Haringey and Oxford, but a big 9-7 win. One the goalies will probably want to forget as you skip down there, but as we can see, 2 goals for the Rising Stars for Chris Beckett and Joe Edwards and Josh Oliver respectively. A hat-trick though from Connor Smith as well as 2 goals from Martin Zaz, goals from Stephen Woodford, Robert Rayner, Matt France and Brad Hildreth. I said getting them over the line. Naomi Healy getting 40 minutes in this game, coming in at the end of the first period with the score at 4-4. I don't know. I just don't know. Get hold of Hendricks and get me that game sheet, please. I'm at 56 hours and no response from EIH. I will poke Trevor. I will poke Trevor and see what I can do about that one, because we're missing that result from the Cardiff Canucks, obviously by the look of it. But elsewhere from Saturday, Peterborough Phantoms 2, who look like they're probably going to be heavily in the title discussion for South 2, although Guildford will of course have something to say about that. But a comfortable 6-1 win for Nathan Pollard's side. He's now up to 8 goals already in 4 games at this point for the Phantoms. So they've been 6-1 against the Junior Devils. The lone goal from the Devils coming from Christionas Necrosavicis. From Ben Mills, from Harry Clapman. So there's a Gosport classic for everybody, but a pretty comfortable win for Peterborough in that one, which then led into Sunday. But the Devils get a bounce back. They get a close, tightly fought win, but they do beat the Lee Valley Lions down at the Gosport Ice Arena. Ben Mills with 2 goals doing the business. Tadger Allen with the lone goal for the Lee Valley Lions. It's been a very different year from the Lions. Obviously, a lot still to happen. And I believe if we skip down as well, no Matt Ganas, who of course has been a massive sort of a piece of offensive firepower for the Lions so far this season. And last year as well, I believe the two top scorers from the Lions missing from this game, but just unable to kind of get things going, and a big win in terms of League and Cup action for Harry Cloutman and the junior Devils. Cloutman, of course, unable to ice on the Sunday. Elsewhere, the local derby won by the Invicta Mustangs at the Riverside, a 4-2 win. 4-2 win for their Invicta, 4-0 up as well in this one. Chelmsford pulling their way back into it, but just running out of road by the end of that one. Goals for the Mustangs from Kevin Lake, Dan Clayton, Ed Stedman and Sam Oliver. Harris McLennan and Ben Powell with the goals for the Warriors. Cardiff Canucks versus the Haringey Huskies. Well, we know, even though we don't have a game sheet, we do know that the Cardiff Canucks lose their home opener by 4-3 against Haringey. A huge crowd in the Vindico Arena for that Cardiff Canucks opener. They're certainly making a lot of noise to start their life. But yeah, Trev, get the game sheet in, please. It would be appreciated. Anyway, this upcoming weekend then, just the one game on Saturday in South 2. Peterborough Phantoms 2 look to keep their good run going as they take on the Bristol Pitbulls. On Sunday, 5 p.m. face-off down in Gosport for the Junior Devils and the Haringey Huskies. A 5:30 face-off, finally back in action after a month, are the Guildford Phoenix. Last year's league champions take on the Invicta Mustangs. And then in the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup, it is a double weekend for the Peterborough Phantoms. They have a trip to North London and to Lee Valley. If we have a quick scoot up to the top of the table there, we can see perfect 4 from 4 in the league. Peterborough Phantoms 2 leading the way. Guildford have only played 1 game so far. At the moment, Lee Valley have 3 points with one win from 4 games. They're in mid-table, which is pretty crazy to see when you look at all the other teams below them. Just looking at the cup competitions there as well. Invicta and Guildford leading the way in Group A. Peterborough and Haringey leading the way in Group B. Although Peterborough have a game in hand over the Huskies. The Cardiff Canucks have lost both of their games that have counted in the Cup so far. And in the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup standings, it is Invicta leading the way from Lee Valley, Peterborough, Haringey and Chelmsford. Nathan Pollard played for the Wands on Sunday. Yeah, great that he's still able to kind of pop up and guess, but this is, of course, the nature sometimes. Injuries, suspensions, that's what you need to do. We're heading to North 2, and the early face-off on Saturday was pretty bonkers, all things considered, as we can see from the scoring here. Kingston hosting Billingham, the game actually completing for Kingston this week, as opposed to their game against Deeside, which has been awarded as a 5-0 to the Sharks. That game that was sort of abandoned the other week. But going into the third period, Kingston were 4-2 up in this game, and Billingham win it by 7-6. Stephen Wallace, who hasn't played competitive hockey for a decade, back playing for the Billingham Buccaneers as the former Manchester Phoenix, former Bracknell B, played all over the place, and just casually scores 4 goals. He now has 5 goals on the season in 3 matches. 4 of them in this game, as Billingham do the massive roaring back. One of those goals as well for Wallace was a penalty shot, but the Kingston Sharks will be kicking themselves no end about having chucked this one away. Deeside, well, they couldn't make it 2 wins in a row, but Bradford get themselves off the mark for 24-25 with a 4-3 win. Jacob Brownlee with the game-winning goal at 56-42, causing some slight excitement in that part of Yorkshire. Quite a low penalty minutes game as well, that one. But also, just look at that Bradford bench. Look how short that Bradford bench is. 1 netminder and barely 2 and a bit lines, but they managed to go all the way over to Deeside and beat the Ducks, which is a pretty impressive win, if nothing else. Sutton, well, we knew they were going to be dangerous this year. We knew that they were going to push Telford, and they are very much still making their case. A 7-2 win at Ice Sheffield against the Nottingham Lions 2. A pretty, Nottingham taking the lead early through Edward Bond, but ultimately Sutton just way too strong, pushing their way past 4-2 at one point. But later goals from Elliot Meadows, Josh Humphreys, and Adam Brooks-Smith putting Sutton over the line in that one. 7 goals there as well from 7 different goal scorers for Sutton as well, showing that at that level they really do have some great scoring depth. The Lions then unable to get anything out of the weekend at all. They lose by 3-2 in their big derby against the Sheffield Titans at Ice Sheffield on Sunday. The Lions still with just the 1 win on the season. Nottingham 2-1 up though as well heading into the third period, but Simon Williams and Sam Burrows with turn the game around and get the points to go all the way back to ice Sheffield in that one. Which then leads us into this upcoming weekend. And well, Kingston are playing on Saturday, but they're not at home, so they have to deal with the fact that they've got a bit of a drive up to the Forum. They have a 5:30 p.m. face-off on Saturday against the Billingham Buccaneers. On Sunday then, a nice, decent amount of games. 5 p.m. face-offs in D-side. They take on the Coventry and IHL Blaze, and the Sheffield Titans have their big local derby against the Sutton Sting. 5:30, the Buccaneers have a double weekend at home. They will take on the Nottingham Lions 2. And then 5:45 in Manchester, it's the Altrincham Aces and last year's champions, the Telford Tigers. They've been the much more successful Tiger side this season. You put your money on Telford winning this one, but can Altrincham spring anything of a surprise? Remains to be seen. We'll just quickly scoot up to just look at the tables there. So having played 7 games to Telford's 4, Sutton are by far and away the team leading the table at the moment. Both Sutton and Telford unbeaten so far in their competitive campaigns. Coventry and Billingham then in 3rd and 4th, followed by Kingston, Altrincham, Sheffield, Bradford, Deeside and Nottingham. 3 teams there playing in themselves towards the last playoff spot, all on 3 points. Sutton have already qualified from the Cup. From Group A, just by virtue of their results. Sheffield, currently the other team, playing themselves in that sort of semi-final spot, but Billingham have a game in hand. In Group B, obviously a little bit closer, given the fact Telford haven't played so many games, but Coventry lead the way by virtue of having played 3 games to Telford's 2. South 1 then. Chelmsford had fun on Saturday, casually 5-0 up before Swindon got themselves on the ball, but a whopping 11-1 win for Lewis Clifford's side. Pretty comprehensive, and Ken Forshey admitted on Zero Pucks Given this week that there were some games they were just going to take a bit of a hammering. This was the game they took quite a big hammering, all things considered. A pretty low penalty minutes game as well, but as we look at the scoring there, that lone goal from for the Wildcats from Ethan Taylor, but 2 goals for Grant Bartlett, 2 for Sam Russell, 2 for Mikey Power, as well as goals from TJ Fillery, Cam Bartlett, Dan Fay, Dylan Dix and Tom Ravenscroft. And then something, well, I think few people probably had this down as a bit of a shock result really, but the Romford Buccaneers getting the regulation win against the Invicta Dynamos. The Dynamos off the back of this game dropping to 500, which given some of the teams they've had to play so far, you'd have expected them to maybe be doing a little bit better. But Megas Canis with the game-winning goal pretty early on in the third period. Actually, Invicta go into the third, 3-2 up before goals for an unassisted goal from Uri Husko, who's been a pretty good pickup for the Buccaneers, and that goal from Keynes. I don't know how we're pronouncing that name. Somebody can please inform me, and I'll apologise for my horrible pronunciation. But either way, the Buccaneers get a regulation win over their big rivals, and as we can see, a pretty impressive performance netminding as well from Max Van Mullen, our graphics boy. Shout out to Max for this one. 41 saves on 44 shots from a 16-year-old is pretty impressive. Also, the lone netminder for this one. As well, Brad Windybank conceding 4 goals on 32 shots. Still pretty impressive, all things considered. But yeah, just a bit of a rough night at the office there for an Invicta side that you would have expected to probably win this game. The other Battle of the Capitals on Saturday down in Cardiff Bay, and another comfortable one for the Streatham Redhawks, who just put up goals for fun. Luke Brittle is now on 14 goals through 6 games in the league so far. Streatham are going to have some issues, though of course we're going to be interesting to see what happens with Ryan Watt given a 2-minute holding the face cage penalty and a third man in penalty for that fight in the second period that sort of involved Ellis Shepherd getting a checking from behind penalty, and Racine getting a bunch of penalties there as well. So it remains to be seen what comes out of some of those interactions from DOPS if they bother to announce anything from Division 1. But yeah, pretty comprehensive, all things concerned, from Sheffield. They smashed through Cardiff. On Sunday then, the Buccaneers, well, they couldn't unfortunately capitalise on that great result on Saturday. They end up losing at home to the Solent Devils. Of course, Of course, as we mentioned, Joe Llewellyn has left Solent now, so it'll be a slightly different looking lineup this coming Saturday. Solent 3-1 to the good again. A goal in the third period from Juraj Huska, making things a bit nervous going on there. Good evening though for Harry Harkup. He's got his third and fourth goals of the season in 6 games, which, given he was between the Bees and the Buffalo last year, clearly finding his feet in South 1 as well. Actually, if you look at that second Harkup goal, Harkup from Sutton and Buckle on 7 and 8 assists respectively this season already, which shows that whilst maybe the results have not quite gone the way of the Devils, that Alex Murray has made some pretty astute signings in terms of being able to replace some of that scoring depth that was lost there. Aaron Taylor taking the full 60 in this one. Sonny Phillips in net for the Buccaneers as after Van Mullen's heroics the night before. Not a good weekend for the Cardiff Fire. So having played at home and getting walloped, they then went down. They then drove all the way down the M4 to get smacked around again. 11-2 Slough win this one. Slough perfect through 4 games. The Fire have now lost all 4. Goals from Carter Lloyd and Danny Williams taking a little bit of shine off of the score sheet here for Slough. No shutout there for anybody concerned, but 2 goals apiece for Luke Smittle, Lewis English and Seb Moore, and the other goals coming from Dylan Halicka, Timo Lindgren, Brandon Miles, Jack Goodchild and Ben Ely Newman. Matt Smittle getting the full 60 minutes in this one and only facing 13 shots. Ben Scandon concedes 11 goals on 86. Ow, 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 ow. Ow, ow, ow. And then there was where I was at on Sunday, the complete chaotic the complete chaotic mastery that was Oxford and Swindon. The shot count, Cardiff versus Streatham. Yeah, it was pretty bonkers. Sorry, Jonathan. Let's just go back up and let's just go find it again. Where's it gone? Let's get that shot count in again. 18 shots to 109. 52 shots in the second period. Mad numbers. Let's get that. There we were. Oxford versus Swindon. Like I said, go read the full write-up on this one at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. In terms of just being able to sit back, enjoy a game, have a bit of fun, have a bit of a laugh about it, this game was brilliant. I had such a great time. It's been a tough summer at Oxford. It's been a tough start to the season at Oxford. But I tell you what, the folk there are great. They're really nice. And I'm so pleased. I also, as well, you think I went to Oxford a couple of times last year. I never saw Oxford win. I finally saw Oxford win. Which is really great. Chris Beckett, having had a good night on the... having had a sort of a pretty productive night on the Saturday for the Rising Stars, comes into the City Stars team and gets not just the game-tying goal, but also the game-winning goal. With just over 4 minutes left in this one. Jay Warren, I have to say, I know Jay Warren divides opinions. He's seen as a bit of a rat, and he is. But dearie me, if South, he has a role at national division level, but he was the best player on the ice in this game by quite some distance, and he looked very, very impressive. If he could find a way to kind of translate that sort of energy and swagger into the national division, he would be able to be a long time, third line, third line of scoring depth guy at that level, and just be a real menace. He could be a new age Grant McPherson if he can focus in and do that. KD, yes, I finally saw a win. I'm not a jinx anymore, as I told everybody at the end of the evening. And of course, if you haven't seen it, a big thank you to the City Stars as well. I walked in and got accosted and got told you're picking man of the match and presenting it. So I got to get down on the ice. Mario Chiru and Jay Warren getting the man of the match. I had to give it to Warren. He was the best player on the ice. Chiru, there was a bunch of different guys who could have got it for Oxford. Felix Hemmings-Mayer had a really good night. Casey Wilson I thought was really fantastic, and I've just seen he's been rewarded with an alternate captain A for the season, which he looks like he's going to be a lot of fun. Aidan McGurk I thought did some proper S-housery during the night, but Chiru was the most consistent and effective player on the ice for Oxford across the 60 minutes, which is why I gave him the man of the match beers on that one. Hopefully he's enjoyed them at some stage. And then, Invicta got over losing to the Buccaneers by smacking MK about and taking it all out on them. Hayden Hagar with a lone goal for the Thunder at the end of the second period, but otherwise it is a full-blown demolition job as the Dynamos get themselves back over 500. It's only 69 shots in that one there, Jonathan, if you're keeping count. Tom Saw already on 10 goals for the year. Not a very deep bench either from the Dynamos. A fair few guys missing, but 5 goals in this one from Tom Saw, which is mental, as well as 2 goals from Ads 2 and Aaron Connolly. I wonder whether I wonder what the lines were by the end of that one. All things considered, but yes, some pretty impressive scoring chops there from a short benched Dynamo side who gave Owen Ryder the full 60 minutes. Josh Hickman left to pick up the pieces in the net for the Thunder. Anyway, this coming weekend then, Solent versus Slough. As I said, that's where I will be this coming Saturday evening down in Gosport. Should be a fascinating game. Slough look so impressive. I'm really interested to see how Solent will recover from that 7-0 drubbing they got at the Hangar. 5:15 at Sapphire for the Romford Buccaneers and the Swindon Wildcats in that sort of battle of the second teams. 5:45 Chelmsford versus Oxford. Can Oxford make it 2 in a row? I'm not sure on that one. And 7 p.m. down in South Wales for the Cardiff Fire and the Invicta Dynamos. Sunday then, the City Stars head back to the Ox Pens. They take on Slough. Swindon take on Invicta at the Link Centre. And 6:45 on a Sunday, it must be the Thunderdome. It is the MK Thunder and the Romford Buccaneers. Which then leaves us with... Oh, apologies. What I've realised I've not done there. We need to go back. Because what we need to do, if this is going to load... quickly squeeze to the top and let's have a quick look at the table. What a massive surprise! Streatham atop. Please hold all of your surprised applause. Chelmsford, of course, having lost against Solent, have a bit of a dent in their record. Solent are also on 18 points, but have played 2 less games than Streatham. Slough are perfect through their 4 games they played. A bit of a quiet start to the year for the Jets. They've not had as many games as others. Invicta there also on 12 points. And as you can see, there's a bit of a gap already developed. Romford, Oxford, Swindon on 6 points. Cardiff and MK both on 0. (5-0) Belfast 5 end of second. If only they had another keeper they could put in. I really feel that there's a spot for Jay Warren in Swindon long term if he just knuckles down and plays hockey. I would agree. I think a little bit of that sort of like I say, Grant McPherson was able to do a bit of everything. Jay Warren has shown he can do a bit of everything, but he's got to be able to put it all together. And I think that's probably the issue for him. He's got to find a way to put it all together. Into North 1 then as we finish off the rest of the NIHL. Big win for D-side. They get an 8-2 win away at Sheffield. Another 4 goals, from Jake Witkowski, clearly enjoying his new life in North 1. As we scoot down there. Other goals for the Dragons coming from Jason Burgess, Ross Kennedy, Alex Parry, and James Parsons, Sam Keeling, and Jack Dransfield with the goals for the Shims, who sent in both netminders. Scarlett Richardson getting the 3rd period of this one for the Shims. Matt Croyle, of course, who started the season in Sheffield, now back with the D-side Dragons. 2 goals on 23 shots for him. We've obviously talked about the fact that Hull had looked like a really, really solid team to start the year. We're top of the table last week and have gotten some really good results away and at home. But this time at home, they are very, very handily grounded by the Billingham Stars as the league champions win by 7 goals to 3. Billingham 6-1 up at one point early in the third before a little bit of a fight back. From the Jets, but clearly not enough. Billingham showing their quality, showing they've been a good side in this division for a couple of years now, and they're league champions for a reason, aren't they? 2 goals from Michael Elder and Ian Brown, Callum Wilkinson, Roland Grittans, and Colin McNulty with the other one there. The goals for the Jets coming from Reese Edwards, Vlad Volkanovs, and Scott Morris. Zach Brown taking the 60 minutes for the Jets. Jacob Hammond, 3 goals and 24 shots in the win for him. And Leeds, who got their first win the previous weekend against Widnes, faced Widnes again at the Castle, and it's win number 2 for the Knights. Going a goal down early on from Bailey Thompson, of course, son of Jamie Thompson, on the 2 away from the Solway Sharks. But Matt Barlow, Michael Danico, and Bailey Perry and Owen Dell putting that game thoroughly to bed. 2 goals, in fact, from Darlow in this game before a late goal from Matt Tarpe, putting a little bit taking a little bit of shine. A bit of a deeper bench actually for the Wolves in this one. They have had a couple of games recently where they've had barely anybody on the roster, but unable to find their way past Leeds. It's been a very, very tough start to this campaign for Widnes. They are one of the few one of the teams lurking around that still is yet to win a game. Dan Norton getting the win for Leeds. Harry Campbell concedes 5 on 47, and what was a pretty spectacular and pretty exciting game with audio only commentary from the big pad at the Motorpoint Arena. Blackburn avenged their loss at home against the Nottingham Lions with a 4-0 win. The goals come from Jacob Lutwich, Bobby Streetley, Darius Balfourth and Josh Crowley, but the real story here was the 37-shot shutout from Ben Keddy, making saves absolutely all over the place, point blank from distance. He seemed to have the stats kind of telling the story there for the Nottingham outshooting Blackburn, given some of their offensive firepower. Lucas Sheldon gets some much needed ice time that he's unlikely to get with the Panthers, but concedes 4 on 34. Into Sunday then, and a good weekend for the Deeside Dragons. That other game against Sheffield where they win by 9-1. We got to the end of the. And Jake Witkowski has his 8th goal of the season, but also as well as you see, a lot of other guys getting on the score sheet as well. Jakob Hayek has got 5 goals in 6 games for the Dragons, so pretty impressive in league play in terms of that. But yeah, not a good weekend. Another one to forget really for the Scimitars. Another team still looking for its first win. Christian Pelling with their lone goal. As I say, 2 goals from Hayek, Alex Parry, Matt Wainwright, James Shaw, Ryan Broster Jones. Jason Burgess, Ollie Housen, as we mentioned, Jake Witkowski with the goals there for the Dragons. And again, Widnes still looking for that win, but a pretty comprehensive win and a 4th of the season for the Whitley Warriors. They win by 9-2 at Hill Heads as they just overpower and move the Wilds to one side. Again, some actual numbers on the bench. 2 goals from Michael Gilbert, in fact, as getting the scoring for the Wild, but 5 goals from Phil Edgar. What more do you need to say on that one? Kyle Ross, Harry Harley, Owen Yarra and Jade Lucas with the other goals there, as Patrick Grigors, finally free of his suspension from last season when he was with Billingham, makes his debut for the Warriors. And Billingham get their 6-point weekend. It's an 8-3 win against Solihull, having had a bit of a torrid time down in the West Midlands, getting beaten 6-1 at Hobbsmoat Road. Billingham take no prisoners, even though they were 2-0 down inside 9 minutes thanks to Nicholas Otterson, because who else is going to score the goals for Solihull for the most part? If you're guessing, it's probably going to be him. Alex White does get their other goal, but it is but Billingham, as we say, they take no prisoners in this game. A hat-trick from Chris Sykes, as well as goals from Ian Brown, Roland Grithans, Joe Dowdle, James Helens and Ben Greenhull. Just skipping back up for a second, Ian Brown with 9 goals in 7 games, which is a pretty good start. Another good performance from Jacob Hammond in net. Graham Laverick left in to face the damage from the start in that one. And then Hull, they get back to winning ways. They win at the NIC on Sunday. It's 9-4 win for the Jets. Hey, they won away again. Sorry, Nottingham. Albeit that Nottingham do have 3 wins on the season. They're in a much better position 7 games into the season than they were at this point last year. It should be said. The addition of the Rushby brothers and Alex Padalek have really helped improve things. Their goals from Padalek, James Mather, Regan Kidd and Alex Rushby for the Lions. A hat-trick for Vlads Volkanovs, as well as 2 goals from Rhys Edwards and Alex Kent. Other goals coming from Boris Gibber and Kieran Beach as the Zach Brown backstops the Jets to a comfortable win. Both netminders seeing time for the Lions there. Not many games in North 1 this weekend. Saturday sees the Hull Jets take on the Sheffield Scimitars. You'd probably go for the home side in that one. And a 7 p.m. face-off at Hobbsmoat Road, Solihull and Whitley. Whitley have had a pretty decent start to the year so far. Can they keep it going in a rink that can prove tricky? And like we say, Billingham got walloped there earlier in the season. Sunday then, 5 p.m. and the first real big test since his arrival for the Dragons for Jake Witkowski. The Dragons take on the Blackburn Hawks at 5 p.m. 5:30 on Merseyside for Widnes versus Solihull, and then at the small at the CCM rink at the National Ice Centre. One I think the Lions have probably got a good chance, and this should be a really interesting game. And I know for folk of you who like to pick up the free games that the Lions stream on their YouTube channel, a first proper look at the Leeds Knights 1. That should Leeds Knights NHL 1 side should be a fascinating game there. 7:20. That one will of course be live on YouTube. For all to see. We'll skip back to the top just to look at the table. Despite their loss, and of course they have that one overtime win as well, is still Hull top of the table, but Billingham with a game in hand able to overtake them. Followed by, but then they drop down. Whitley, of course, have not played as many games, neither have Blackburn, but they're both Whitley on 13, Blackburn and Deeside on 12, followed by Nottingham on 9, then Solihull, who've only played 5 games, then Leeds, Widnes and Sheffield still yet to find a win this season. Can we talk about Deeside leaving Jake in Sheffield? No, they didn't leave him in Sheffield. They left him in Deeside. That was the problem. So if you missed this was one of the greatest things I've seen for a while, was Deeside talking about the fact and admitting in public that they left Jake Witkowski behind in North Wales at the rink and had to go back and get him. Oh my word, I love British hockey so much sometimes. It's because of crazy things like this. Hopefully, and I'm sorry Deeside, because I know a few of you do watch, we're going to remind you about it for a little while. Just because it's funny. And we don't mean anything horrid by it. It is quite funny though. Can't lie. Lions didn't outshoot us. I was there. Complete lies. Also, Pfeiffer missing a trick with Ben Keddy. Hey, I mean, like, as we've seen that situation in Fife, just weird. Britton Priest still without a team. Makes no sense to me. But if Keddy's going to get great amounts of ice time playing for Blackburn, knock yourself out, kid. Rumble, young man, rumble. Either way, we have gone through all 5 divisions of the National Ice Hockey League structure. It is all there. It is all done. That means, of course, folks, if you're new, we open the door. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chuck in the chat, chuck it into the chat. Let's talk about it because we've got a few, we'll probably head off around the 9:30 mark. But of course, tons and tons of stuff. The NHL is back properly tonight. We've got stuff in the Elite League. Guildford have changed defensemen around because they feel they need to kind of kickstart something. What we got from Andrew Day there in the third. 5-0 Belfast. 6 goals from Mike Lee, Pierre, Olivier Morin. Grant Mismash is a hilarious name. JJ Picanic, Kieran Long, and Jordan Kawaguchi. Not long, of course, before I'm back with Elite League bits and pieces. Probably about a month or so till I go on my sort of run with Guildford. What we're probably going to do is kind of, like I say, we'll take each of the games. They'll get written up as ever. What I might do, and I might see if I can find a way to help get other people to kind of maybe do some NHL writing during that time. I need to kind of think about how I approach that though, just because I'm picky. And if it needs to be done, I want it to be done in really, really good ways. And maybe we kind of do some sort of guest spot pieces. Five are missing a trick in general when it comes to British players. Yes, they are. Perfect hockey snack. Oh, this is a question, Graham. So, I've only ever had it once, but I do think like the Stovey has to be up there because I had a Stovey at Murrayfield years ago, and as a premise, it's just the perfect thing. Like in a polystyrene mug with a spoon to just scoff away. Like I think that's pretty good. The thing, of course, is like if you've ever like had a proper like bratwurst or anything like that in Germany, pretty standard. Rostock, because of course being by the sea and being a big fishing place as well, you can get like really, really good sort of like what the Germans would call like a Fischbrötchen, but wouldn't go down very well in British rinks at all. Amsterdam, the rink at Amsterdam, the Jaap Eden Barn, do a really, really good kind of like part fricadella, part sausage kind of thing. That was really good. But I think kind of like, the thing is, what's the perfect snack for me? It's the sandwiches I sneak in, because it's cheap. Although actually, again, Oxford, one of my favourite rinks actually for food, that you can get like a barbecue chicken and cheese panini for like about £5. It's pretty good. It's not like world beating, but it's pretty good. Still Dogs versus Romford could be a great game. Yeah, the questions there. I think, like I said, the issue I potentially foresee is both teams kind of neutralising each other a bit. I think that's probably my one worry kind of with that game, is that people say, oh, it'll be amazing, and actually they might just kind of nullify each other and you won't really get much as a result. Perfect hockey snack, a nice Sheffield hot. Well, no, surely like pie and peas. pie and peas from my Sheffield. Anything but a rollover hot dog. I can't argue. You, Chris. To be fair, you and I have both had far too many of those in our lifetime, so it's a little bit of a mess there. Lightning Halloween jersey, 150 sold out in 2 stages, 17 minutes. All own and loans. I mean, here's the thing, and again, for newer viewers, I don't like special jerseys. I don't like special jerseys. Your jerseys, your colours, those are special. I don't like special jerseys as a rule. I get why clubs do them because they're a great they're a great money generator. Like remembrance jerseys, raising money for charities and stuff like that. I get why teams do it. It wouldn't be my choice. Remembrance jerseys as well, I kind of think is, for me personally, it doesn't sit great. I'm not necessarily sure that's kind of it's the right thing. If you see what I mean, I'm not sure it doesn't really sort of sit well. I get why teams do it. I totally 100% get why teams do it. And as a hockey team, what better way to kind of, the argument will be, well, what other ways do we kind of commemorate this and kind of raise awareness for it? The easiest way to do that is with a jersey. I do get that. I just think that there are better ways to sometimes raise awareness. I actually like warm-up jerseys is a really good example of this. Actually, I like the Bees. The Bees have their warm-up jerseys, and I think if Joe's still lurking around, I'm pretty certain it's for a local autism charity that the Bees have their warm-up jerseys for that. That's the kind of thing for me that you'd do, rather than changing the colours that you wear in the games, because those are your colours. Those are special in and of themselves. And also the old rule, having seen it enough times with Coventry, if you wear a special jersey, you lose. You lose. In that front, in that sort of sense. So I think like I say, warm-up shirts, I think maybe not having a league night of kind of doing things like, I know, and I use them a lot as an example, but like in Australia, where they have like an indigenous people's round where everybody has like their own design jersey on a theme. I think if you're going to do it, like with Pride Nights, have it across the league and all do it, not just sort of like picking sort of random bits and pieces. We almost had to say a sad goodbye to Ben Callahan wants you to a rollover hot dog in Telford, never again. And also Ben's got a pretty iron constitution, so, and also better a rollover hot dog than a free hot chocolate. There's an old reference for people. Best logo in the league. Best logo in the league, says Mitchell. I actually quite like Bristol's. I do quite like Bristol's logo, I have to say. Obviously, like from an on-ice perspective, it's not been fun, but they're still getting like 1,700 people, despite not being very good this year. But their logo's great. I do like their logo. I don't mind the steel dog. I quite like that, although, like I say, the change of colours has never sat well with me. The Steelers' colours always look awful. I liked the old dog shirts, the blue and the white. Best logo I'd say is Bees. I don't mind it. I think I'm there's always a part of me that'll always look at the Bees logo and go, for obvious reasons. But I don't mind it. I think, like I say, I think the rebrand has been good for them. I think it was I think it certainly looks okay. For me though, like I said, I just really like Bristol's logo. Your logo. Cheers, Lee. Yes, we'll show people that when that appears. Bristol's 15th year logo. Yeah, I mean, like, their regular one's pretty good as well. I still want a league-wide retro jersey weekend in the National League. I mean, Bristol, of course, would probably have to look towards something like the Avon Arrows. I mean, Bristol have obviously been around as a club for a pretty long time, so entirely doable. Solway, you'd probably get a Dumfries Border Vikings homage, which would be pretty cool. Telford, I mean, the Tigers as the name have been around, but you could get a Wild Foxes reference bag. That'd be pretty cool. Swindon. Swindon could go back to the old N-Power Wildcats, like white and teal. That'd be pretty cool. Not in our league, but I love the Steel Kings and the Steel Stings, which are the para ice hockey teams in Sheffield. That's actually, the Steel Kings logo is pretty badass. Love the blue shorts they wear as well. It's a colour you hardly see in hockey. Yeah, the blue on blue, I think it looks really like Bristol, for all of the many criticisms you can have of them. Like, they look very good. The jerseys are very good. The whole kit looks very good. Like you say, the blue on blue has worked out really well for them. Any other news? Not that I can immediately see. That's all. That's all wrestling related. Oh my, I've just seen the Maple Leafs have placed goaltender Joseph Woll on injured reserve. Hey, Leafs fans, are you ready to be hurt again? Are ya? Sorry. I mean, for me, as a Caps fan, the Washington Capitals exist as an organisation at the moment with one goal, which is get Alexander Ovechkin to the goals record, and then we can blow it all up and start again. Do have a message from my I have a message from my wife, which is entirely allowed, but she's I always wonder if I'm going to be always wonder if it's ever going to be a "you're being too loud" message. Evening all, watching in slight delay. Jerseys, logos, Haringey Huskies looking proper sharp this year. Fully, I didn't realise. I didn't realise that Haringey had gone full stitched on their jerseys this year. Yes, as Jess would say back in the day, Leaf's gonna leaf. Oh boy. Big up those 6 point stars. Yes, Jono, great weekend, of course. Do make sure, if you haven't checked out the Billingham Stars podcast with Jono and Craig Simpson and Carol Hunter, that you go and rock and roll with those. That's always appreciated. Andrew, coming in strong as always with the WNIHL games. No elite league games this weekend. So we have, what have we got there from One North? Solway Sharks 0, Caledonia Steel Queens 6. 2 South, Streatham Storms Development Side 0, Cambridge Kodiaks 8, Slough Sirens 3, Peterborough Phantoms Women 2, and then Bristol Huskies with an 8-0 win over the MK Falcons in 1 South. Leeds versus Hull going to be very interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear the reaction from Leeds fans if they lose. That's the one I'm interested in kind of seeing, because like, good teams lose hockey games, right? They lost to the Bees. The Bees played out of their minds, out of their skins, and did the business. It happens, right? What I'm interested to see is how, and obviously Leeds have now lost. They've lost twice early. If they lose a third game within like the first sort of 6 to 7 weeks of the season, I'm interested to hear the response from the fans. But I'm also really interested to see the response from Ryan Aldrich as to what they do, because that's a good side. And because here's the thing, I don't think like going out and like gassing a player is going to really solve things for Leeds. I think it's they have to play differently. Old school jersey logos, Teesside Bombers. Well, that's one for Billingham to do. There's nothing stopping Billingham from having a retro night, I suppose, and going down that route. Maybe you could do that with Whitley, actually. Get Whitley to speak to Whitley, because obviously Billingham and Whitley are able to kind of work together to solve a few, do a few bits and pieces. Get an old school, but not like not like a horrendous logo version, like retro Whitley Warriors night jersey, and get a Billingham old school, like Billingham Bombers style jersey, and like have a retro weekend. That'd be pretty cool. Star Jets retro jerseys last year were awesome. I didn't mind them. Played them in the 80s, and the original had the original spot on. I didn't really like the colours myself, but I mean, in terms of like an homage to what came before, they were pretty awesome, all things considered. Pretty good. Someone mentioned there about the Bison going back to the Beavers days. I don't think we'd ever resurrect the Beavers names, but we have used the colours before. The 2013-14, sort of the 2014 Cup and playoff jerseys were anniversary logo, like Beavers template style jersey. So they had like the colour scheme and the colour swatches and stuff like that, but then used the anniversary logo in 2014, where of course they defeated the Milton Keynes Lightning in the 2014 EPL Cup final. We never mention it. Never mention it at all. Never mention it. NHL All-Star Weekend would be interesting but highly unlikely. Incredibly unlikely. They can barely announce the All-Star teams at the end of the year, let alone getting an All-Star Weekend together. Barely had a drink during this stream, which was a bit silly. Obviously running a bit late, just we talked so much about Ice Hockey UK as well. Still massively interested to hear people's thoughts on that. But yeah, a lot of moving parts. And like I said, this weekend, back to Gosport for me. Really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing Slam in the flesh. People say, it's Gosport, it's different. You have to play. You still got to play hockey there. All things considered, even if it is a different kettle of fish. The wrestling fans will appreciate that the message from my wife was a cut together of things from the APA in their office. Just having a look what else is going on. You can see Klagenfurt have beaten Geneva in the Champions Hockey League. Not much else. Pretty quiet Wednesday. Of course, we should get some news out of DOPS for bits and pieces tomorrow. So that we're going to roll. Last call then, folks, as it's 9:30. Last call for questions, comments, thoughts and feelings. Yeah, Finney Ulrich getting some good ice time as well, being able to do some stuff on the ice. Obviously not the Steelers losing the shootout, but still ambitions of making the next round would be the first British team to do so. I think the Steelers' performance is pretty much guaranteed another challenger spot for the winners of the Elite League for next year. 7-0 now to the Giants. If only they could pull Shane Owen for somebody. What would you do? Deary me. But yeah, looking forward to get back down to Gosport. Like I say, it's just fascinating watching games there. I really enjoy it. Yes, Jessica Campbell, of course, the first female coach in the NHL last night. Dan Balsmer, of course, making her the first female coach in the AHL when he was coaching the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and then has brought her from the AHL into the NHL with the Kraken. So congratulations to her. Multiple Olympic medalists. Well worthy of her place on any bench that she chooses to be on. So congratulations to her. Not sure what the Kraken are going to do this year, but great to see her there having a crack at it. Could she be the first female head coach? We will see. But yes, otherwise, your reminder that there's tons and tons of good stuff out there. Doing content across all of British hockey. Go check it all out. Enjoy what you enjoy. Support what you want to support. Share things around. People talk about about sort of helping. Like I say, he stuck something in the chat earlier, but Lee has got something coming. We've got something coming from Lee. It's going to be a really, really fun addition to what we've got behind us. But lots and lots of cool stuff coming up. And like I say, the new Hockey Stories piece, just because it's taken time to pin down people to interview for it, but yeah, the last weekend of October, so the 26th and 27th, I won't be at a game just because, like I say, I'm going to go see my dad. I talk about it, and I'll talk about it in a second. Well, about money towards Parkinson's UK if you download Dice Hockey from the website. But yeah, I'm just going to go see my dad for that weekend. So what we're doing is I'm aiming to get Hockey Stories out that weekend, because then that way there's kind of not sort of a gap in pieces, and everyone could just get something really, really cool to read. I don't know, Dan Barsma for obvious reasons. Yeah, I can kind of forgive him now. It's been long enough. Either way, I think just looking at the time, I think it is time. We will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Follow me on my weird journey through British hockey in our Banners on the Road series. Last weekend in Oxford for that fantastic game between the City Stars and Swindon Wildcats 2. And this upcoming weekend I'll be in Gosport for the Solent Devils and the Slough Jets. Looking forward to seeing the Holy Trinity back at full power for Slough. How will they do after their little excursions into the National Division? We will see this upcoming weekend. As well as on the website, you've got all those games that have been written up. You have our Hockey Story series, long form pieces of content, videos, written, all kinds of stuff that goes from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. You can also pick up the old back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast. That's there, as well as our free to download tabletop ice hockey game, Dice Hockey, free to play. You can download it and then play it with bits and pieces you find around your house. All I ask is, if you do download it and you do enjoy it, to please consider chucking a few quid towards Parkinson's UK, because my dad's got Parkinson's and he's got Parkinson's dementia. It sucks. Parkinson's is horrible, and if we can find a way to get money towards research and a cure, that would be fantastic. But like I say, there's 13 and a half years worth of stuff that you can go check out and find something for you and anyone else that you know over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall if you like getting bits and pieces through your Facebook feed. Go hit the like button there. And you'll get all the pieces that go onto the website. All the links to bits and pieces will go on there, and you'll get that in your Facebook feed. No worries. Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it, is at BannersOTW. That's the best place to keep up with me and my kind of rolling commentary on hockey as we find it across Britain and the world. And of course, there's our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Banners on the Wall is never going behind a paywall. It's just not our style, but it does cost to do things. And if you like what you see and you want to support in some way, then, like I say, chuck a few quid in our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. And if you haven't got the money, then don't. All I would ask then is that if you like something, share it. Stick it on your Facebook, stick it on your Twitter, Discord, Snapchat, wherever you want to put it. Like I say, the more eyes and ears we get on what's happening here in the National Division, then the better in my thing. But the best bit about all of those links I've just spouted off at you is we're on YouTube. It's all down below in the description. And of course, YouTube, we need to keep that algorithm hamster fat and fed. So subscribe to the Banners on the Wall YouTube channel. And remember, of course, it's not just these Wednesday nights that you can do bits. There's plenty of video interviews from with the movers and shakers of British hockey over the last couple of years, club owners, coaches, players, people from EIHL, and of course the last Big Hockey Stories interview is on there with the guys from NIHL DOPS. No, they've not spoken to anybody else. They've only spoken to Banners on the Wall. So make sure to check out that great kind of content. If you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get told whenever anything comes out. Like the video, share the video, and of course, there's this Wednesday nights, 8 PM here on YouTube, the NIHL's best and first live show to cover all 5 National Ice Hockey League divisions, as well as chatting through all the big news from around British hockey and the world. It is here at the BOTW What's Current stream. And there we go, another week done. And the week that the Cardiff Canucks had their home opener and had a massive turnout of over 1,000 people for a South 2 game, where the Bees beat the Knights, where Bradford and Telford got their first wins of the season. The wheels are turning on 24-25, and there's plenty more stories to be told. I had a really great time on Sunday night in Oxford. Maybe the weekend, the kind of game I needed to remind me that this sport is meant to be fun, and it's not all meant to be serious and meant to be frustrating. There is good out there. Sometimes it is not in the place you expect it to be. But hopefully, wherever you find your hockey this weekend, you will get that bit of fun that only hockey can provide. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do whatever you can to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying, stay safe, and so long till next time. I'll be in Gosport on Saturday. If you're there, come say